Zambia Blog Talk Radio.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Blog Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Blog Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Blog Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And it will stay on the recorded shows.
Hi everybody, welcome to the show. It's Saturday, October 28th, and welcome to Zambia Blog Talk Radio. Today we have a roundtable discussion, but before we get into the discussion, and I introduce my panelists and my guests, whichever terminology you want to use, I want to take this opportunity to welcome all the Zambians that have come into Dallas for this special big OZA and Association of Zambians in Dallas-Fort Worth collaboration independence celebration, which is going to take place today. And it's not too late for you to still show up there and join us. Let me give you some information in case you plan on joining everybody. Okay, this is the flyer. And I think the most important information you need is this. That's the venue, Park Plaza Tower, 6th floor, and that is the information. It's not closed yet, so if you didn't register online, you can still show up at the door, and it will be $100, I believe. Everybody's welcome. So welcome, Zambia, to Dallas-Fort Worth. We are excited to have all of you show up in the Metroplex. And welcome, welcome, welcome once again. Okay, please follow us on YouTube, ZBTR TV, and we would like you to be part of the discussion. And whenever the show begins, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll be able to get a notification and you will be able to follow our live broadcast. Okay, today, we have an open discussion. All right, Mr. K, how's Lusaka today? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Nkunita.
How are you
Lusaka,
doing?
I'm okay. Seems like it wants to start raining in Lusaka.
Okay, here it's dark too, and we are it's a rainy day, and we hope the Zambians that have come are enjoying themselves. All right, somebody who hasn't been around for a while here. Alan, welcome. It's been a while.
Yes, it's been a while. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back. You know how it is. It's the new format. We have to sit in one spot and to participate. The old format, we could be working and still
you could be anywhere and you just call in and things are happening, right? Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right. Our subject today is democracy at work. There are three main subjects that we're going to discuss. We appreciate everybody joining us online. Welcome, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're watching us from. We're going to discuss three main topics today, all right? Hope we can swing it within an hour. If not, we shall do our best to go. So we are aware that the Patriotic Front, which is PF, one of the major opposition political party in Zambia, so to speak, they were in government. They just lost the UPND in the last general elections. They just completed a process of nominations for presidential candidates, those who want to take over the party presidency, all right? That is number one. Number two, we're going to look at a little bit of what happened in the Kabushi and the Kwacha constituencies. A lot of dramatic issues there concerning the courts swing back and forth. Our interest is not what happened in the courts. The interest is we're going to look at the figures that the statistics, the registered voters, how many people participated, what were the implications of the PF not being on the ballot, and for the purpose, remember, our discussion is democracy at work. And then finally, we're going to look at the new prime minister in the UK, is of Indian origin. I'm going to play like 2-3 video clips of things that are happening there so that you can get a sort of an idea why we want to talk about that and what is happening. Okay, our first topic here is PF party presidential nominations. I believe we have like how many candidates, Kasuluba? Is it 8 or 9?
8.
We have 8 candidates, right? We have 8 candidates, and if you want to go through the names, I don't have the list of names, but 8 people for the PF presidential party presidency managed to register to participate in the elections. The party, I believe, is going to hold a convention in March next year. All right. So the interesting thing that is coming out of this, Alan, is there is this speculation to say, I want us to look at these things. The nomination fee is 200,000. All right. And they gave a very short deadline in which people wanted to do it, should do it. First of all, let me just say, what were your general thoughts about this, to the two of you? Let me begin with Alan. What were your general thoughts on this process?
Generally, when I saw the number of people registering, I was like, seriously? Actually, what caught my attention first was some of the candidates who is registering. I was like, why is he going to go vie for presidency? You know, and then
why not? Why not, Alan? It's democracy. Yeah.
Because the office of president, you know, first of all, it's the seriousness of that office. You're going to be vying for Republican president. You know, are you qualified? We look at your background, your history. How have you conducted your business? You know, and even your record in politics. All those things are important. Otherwise, you end up with complete vagabonds in office, and your country will never move forward. So when we elect people, when we want to stand behind people who we know that they can take the nation forward. So some of the characters on that list, we just like, seriously, are we still dealing with this? You know, and then also I looked at the number. I thought, well, I guess that's a good way to fundraise. And that was just, you know, I didn't realize there was an actual rumor going on, but that did cross my mind that, hey, they get to raise some money, you know.
Yeah, there is a very strong assertion or allegation, whichever terminology wants to use, that they are just trying to avoid, the DEC clamping on them to say, where did you get this money for the convention? Mr. Kasuluba, your thoughts before we drive into specifics here?
When I saw, looking at the individuals that came, I was like, this is a party that wants to bounce back, right?
Yes.
Power. They want to be the strongest opposition party. Okay. And then, well, it's a democracy, quite all right. Anyone is able to come through. But then you have the likes of our very own Iris Kaingo, for example.
Did she fire?
coming through. No, just the noise and the trying to spice up the mood, and how social media just reacted, and because they were saying, hey, this is the person that they want to lead the party. Okay. So then I was thinking there's a bit of desperation in terms of who's going to lead. First of all, if you're seeing such names pop up even way before, then for me, I'm like, PF, do you really have direction? Do you really know what you're doing, you know? So that's basically, for me, the thought around is in addition to trying to raise the money and all, I wasn't really convinced as to whether they are ready to bounce back as a strong force.
You know what? The two of you raise a point that I didn't even think about. I'm being honest here. I just looked at it at the nomination fees, the time frame that was allocated to it, very short time. You both raise very important points when you talk about, you're talking about, what do you call it? Here, they like to use the expression, the leader of the world. If you become president of the United States, you basically become the leader of the world. So you raised an important point, Alan. I'm saying again, I didn't even think about it that way. For me, I was just looking at it, PF party presidential nominations. So basically, this is the person, should the PF win elections, who's going to become the Republican president, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. So in other words, we have issue with some of the candidates there. Is that the point? Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely. For me, that's what the point is. And unfortunately, most of the candidates there, I can't really say everybody, because some of them I really do not know who they are or anything about their background or their CV, so to speak. But when you are picking a leader, you want somebody that is going to be credible to start with. They have to have credibility with not just with the masses. My credibility shouldn't come from, okay, because I belong to this party. The credibility is, when you're president, it's what is your thought pattern? What is your background? What is it that you stand on? That is why things like the religious beliefs will come into play. Because the assumption is that we're going to get two candidates who are academically and with the intellect, they are able to carry out the job, right? Yes. So after you reach that threshold of being able to intellectually and academically, you are capable of doing the job. Now it comes to things like, okay, what is your moral background? What is your moral standing? All these things also begin to play in. But the caliber of the people that we floated so far at that level, it's been like, it's questionable. There's no one there on that list who's really, I can say this one is a proven leader that I can proudly stand behind and say this one is going to be our leader. So that's part of the thing that we have in Zambia. Maybe the politics have gone to a level where a lot of the more qualified people, I think, still decide to stay away.
But now, to your point, Vala, let me cut you short there, Kasulova. He's raising a very important point about a character, moral issues, and even just the ability to handle national issues.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, do those things really count in our politics, if I may say that? I'm not trying to be negative about my country. I love my country. Yeah. You have people who have bounced back and forth. Let's just be candid here. Wakambwili has been all over the place. He left the party, came back, said the things he said about Valungu and all that stuff. Is this about, it doesn't matter what this person has done or lived their lives or whatever, the person makes a lot of noise? Kasulova, is this what it is about?
Uncle Nathan, to take you back, one of the major reasons as to why H7 became president of this nation is that Zambians had reached a point where they were saying, you know what? We need a sober-minded leader, one who's proven, who's first of all who's been educated. So the level of educated, exposed, understands business and all that, a sober character and a sober mind. Why? Because in the previous regime, in the previous PF regime, we noticed lots of hooliganism, things that were not pardon?
Vakaponya. You are being too kind.
Yes, you know, lots, yes. And most people mention to say this is because of the type of leaders that we have. Okay. So then they mentioned the Bowmans, of this world. They mentioned other tycoons that were in the PF to say, in as much as they have the money, they are still Caponias. And so Zambians said, you know what? We do not want to bring such people back. It's not just about to say, okay, this person has got lots of money, this person is rich, but then are they educated? Are they exposed? So that this hooliganism comes to an end. So now, bring it back to your question. Yes, Zambia is at a point where we are just not looking at bringing in any individual for the sake of democracy, for the sake of these other things. We're going to bring in someone who's going to promote, who's going to bring back Kadarism, who's going to champion corruption, because maybe they are going up the ladder of success was through corruption. So yes, that has a big role to play.
Okay, very important. Maybe what we need to do is, I was thinking about bringing the young man on the show to talk. I'm not interested in the other guys. I was thinking of bringing the young man on the show, Vinny. If you remember, Alan, you've been here longer than Kasuluba. We brought Vinny on the show when we're still on the phone. Remember the youths that rebelled, MUPF?
Yes.
That's him.
Okay.
During the, what's the name of the wood called?
Mukula.
During the Mukula saga, when they stopped the truck that was going somewhere. Remember that incident, Kasuluba? He was one of the ringleaders who did that. So I was thinking it would be interesting to bring him here to talk about how he plans to reform the party.
Vanessa, just also for me, just to also clarify a point. I know we talked about the education. When I say education, we don't necessarily mean you've got to have 10 bachelor's degrees or you've got to be a doctor somebody. You don't have. You could have just ended up at Form 5, grade 12 or Form 5. But how you've been able, how intelligent you are. You can be educated, you're well read, you understand economic issues, you understand social issues, you understand all these issues. You can handle yourself like diplomatically in front of in diplomatic circles. That's what we mean when we say education, because people may think we're talking about how to be a professor, because there are even totally foolish and illiterate professors around. So that's what's important. It's the leadership qualities, the skill. We want to have leaders who will inspire you. Because the opposition is strong, right? And very, very inspirational. Guess what happens to the government in office? They have to pull up their socks. They have to make sure that they are delivering.
Exactly.
So when you have an opposition, a strong opposition, full of capable people, the benefit goes to the nation. Because those people that are in office make sure that they do right, they deliver, because they understand if we don't deliver, these people are not playing, we are gone.
That's true. That's very true. Let's go to, did you want to say something else, Kasuluba, before we look at the nomination fees and, people coming with, what do you call it? Paper bags full of money, going to file for nominations. Make your point, Kasuluba, before we zero into the nomination fees.
Quickly, I think in addition to what Alan has said, you also asked about the importance of track record, Uncle Nathan, right? As regards to the whole nomination process. I remember, I can't really pick out exactly which individuals, but I have seen on media or read where a particular leader, let's say around the globe or in Europe, maybe they go into politics, but because of a certain incident they did, maybe child abuse or things like that, or molesting or whatsoever, that catches up with them, and maybe they are forced to resign or step down because of what they had done. Previously, we never had such things, especially in Zambia. But where the Zambian politics have reached now, because I don't know, people are more enlightened now. Maybe we, the youths, are getting more exposed, and making some decisions, and these are some of the things that might come to affect us as well. You have an individual who did reckless things back then. You want them to lead you. These are some of the things that might actually affect even the nation. The world would be saying, but that person did that, and that's a leader. that kind of a thing. Yeah.
It's
so
true.
we don't want.
Is there, let's talk about the nomination fees. Any suspicion? I did ask this question to say, how does the Electoral Commission of Zambia receive nomination fees? I don't know whether we go to the bottom of that, cash or by check. Kasuluba, do you know how they do it? They do receive nomination fees by cash, right?
I'm not that certain on that one, really. I try
So
to.
any suspicion? Any suspicion on the nomination fees?
No, for me, when I saw the cash, it's mild. It's got to be dramatic. Everything he does is dramatic. So he knows what's going to catch attention, what's going to make me noise. So you do that. But I don't know that there would be a law that stipulates that it has to be cash. Okay. Because cash is still legal tender. So
yeah.
So there are 8 candidates, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Uncle Nathan.
8. Sorry, Kasuluba. 8 candidates, 200,000 each, right?
Yes.
So they got a cool 1.6 million kwacha.
6 million kwacha.
Okay, just like that. Okay, Kasuluba.
Yeah, quickly. I do not have the facts as to whether they do accept cash, but I know organizations, for example, big organizations that have a threshold to say, due to various reasons or various security or whatsoever, there's a threshold to say we can only receive so much. If, let's say, you're trying to pay some money towards a certain government parastatal, they'll state to say you can only pay so much in cash.
Okay.
Yes, due to various reasons. And I believe, in as much as there might not be a law, the ECZ should also have, let's say, a certain threshold because of security reasons and many other things. Yeah. So receiving 200,000 kwacha in cash,
well, they've raised the cool 1.6 million. I don't know how much the cost of the convention is, and I believe they're going to have it in March. We shall work on speaking to Vinny here, one of the presidential candidates, and see where this is going. So the nominations were closed yesterday. Bakambwili complained that if they do it this way, it might have implications. I don't know if there's been any repercussions, Kasuluba, on the ground. He requested that they extend it, and do we know why they made it? It was just, the only time I heard about it was when they actually started filing nominations. What was the time frame given to the whole process? Do we know?
I think I read somewhere that it's after the High Court or whichever court gave the last word, you have 90 days to do it. The law stipulates that you must file within 90 days. It could be the following day, but it cannot be after 90 days. So the ECZ is legally within their stipulations or their guidelines to have appointed that day to be the elections. They did not go outside of the 90 days. They could give a disadvantage to the opposition by holding it too fast, but it's still legal. So but you mentioned something earlier about the source of the money. How, if you bring cash, how do people follow the source of money? Well, see, that's another thing that we should have with our politicians and their organizations, the track record of where's the money coming from, who is funding you. I think neither parties that are involved in Zambia have gotten to that place where they can disclose.
Isn't it a constitutional issue, Alan? The constitution doesn't stipulate that you reveal or disclose your source of campaign funds funding.
Yeah,
it's
so that's again, in our development as a democracy, that should come about, because that's where we begin to ensure that we don't have a person that has been paid for by some cabal, and then you have him win presidency, but is funded by other people, which does happen.
Yeah, you see. You might just have the mafia running the country. You don't even know.
Yeah, true.
It's very true. Okay, let's switch subjects here and go to the Kabushi and Kwacha by-elections. A lot of drama, no PF candidate on the ballot, and some political parties cried foul. They said this election is a sham. Members of parliament from the opposition walked out of parliament when the 2 candidates who won were being sworn in. Okay, that's what happened. Kabushi, my interest in this discussion or topic on the Kabushi is the number of registered voters that took part in the 2021 elections compared to those that voted this time around. Okay. What does that reflect?
So, okay, I want to talk about maybe specifically Kabushi.
Mm-hmm.
So I read something to say the registered voters were over 49,000.
In Kabushi?
Yes, that's Kabushi. I have the stats for Kabushi. But in general, the voting was the turnout was actually below 30%.
In the by-election?
In the by-election.
Okay.
Yes.
So what was the turnout?
So the turnout was below 30%, at around
that's around 11,000 people.
Yeah,
11,000.
And then by around 10 hours, I read, or rather I hear that at one of the polling stations should have been Kabushi. Was it Kabushi? Lubuto rather.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the 921 registered voters, only 100 had voted.
Okay.
If you look at the numbers, Nathan, if you look at the numbers of the actual results, for instance, in Kabushi, the UPND got 6,533 votes.
96. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the
independent candidate.
In Kabushi, they got 6,533. The independent candidate got 4,607.
Yeah.
And then in Kwacha, UPND got 6,596.
96. Yeah.
And the independent candidate got 1,258.
Yeah.
Yeah. So especially like for Kabushi, that is where probably the PF are saying if that's why they didn't want us to participate, because if an independent candidate would get that close,
yes,
how far would have the actual and you know, people, he's made some pretty good headway. The PF guy in
that's
Kabushi.
Lusambo, right?
Yeah, Lusambo in Kabushi. So we hold our elections against this background of no one can trust the process.
Okay.
If you are in the opposition, the process is never fair for you. So I think as a nation, we've got to be able to, you know, in America they say making our union a more perfect union. So consistently trying to improve on the system. So there should be a situation where consistently trying to improve on the system, making sure that number one, we have maximum participation, and then also the independence of the Electoral Commission and how independently they are really carried out, like really having the ground level. That's something that we've got to consistently keep working on.
Now, I don't want to lose this trend of thought, Alan. To the two of you, that issue or argument of the independence of the Electoral Commission, has that been proven by virtue of the results that we have seen? I mean, UPND ousted the sitting government. Doesn't that vindicate the ECZ?
Not necessarily, because there are different stages. Okay. What is allowed before the election at nomination, what people go through to get themselves nominated, even to be on the ballot, how they conduct themselves during the whole electoral process, and then also now the counting of the ballot boxes. You know,
three things, right?
Stages, I can be disadvantaged at any of these different stages.
3 levels, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the questions come in. I mean, like in this case, for the two constituencies, it would just be simply that the ruling government did not want the opposition on the paper. And unfortunately, even when legally the ruling government could have done that, that is something that's going to have to follow us. So the only thing that can be done, I keep saying, is that if we can improve on the appearance of independence of the Electoral Commission, so that even when the Electoral Commission disqualifies me, it does not mean or look like the government is saying, make sure he doesn't participate.
Now, some people may argue, with that, Kasulu, and say, what evidence do you have that the government didn't want these people on the ballot? Like I don't know whether you read that story where Mr. Kalava says is asserting that he tried to register a political party, but he has information that the president took interest in his party. What evidence do you have?
I'll talk about the Kawushi and Kwacha issue. In as much, yes, we might say we do not have evidence, but remember where it's starting from already. The stance between ECZ and Law Association of Zambia, there's already issues.
Yes.
So it's not smooth sailing to say it just happened quietly and all that. So there was this ambiguity here and there, because someone is going to ask to say which expert in the ECZ failed to say no, these guys should not, when there's an expert amongst the lawyers who thinks they should, and the other way around. So already there's always this to and fro, and then we move on. They get cleared, and then when they get cleared, no, again there's another ruling that comes in to say they are not. So why this disjoint, and how come it's only happening to these particular individuals and at this particular point? So already
that creates a lot of
yes.
Nathan, here's the thing also, because when you have the judiciary or the judges are appointed, that's a problem. Unlike here in the States, where the judge stands for elections, the judge is elected by the people. So the judge, you can't say no, because I'm a Democrat or Republican, the judge is necessarily going to follow our side.
Yeah.
Though of course we accept that the party can still sponsor a judge, and they'll still, but at least there's a barrier that the party has to cross to really go corrupt the judges. You know, the Supreme Court judges, that's a different story. But some of the lower judges in the lower courts are elected. Even the police commissioner is elected. So if you, Pastor Nathan, as president of the ruling party or any political party, come to my area of jurisdiction, if I don't enforce the law, even though it's you, I may not win the election, because you are not the one that appointed me. But if I do something that's against you and you are appointing authority, you know, the chances are I'm going to want to favor you because I want to keep my job.
In
That's
addition
very
to,
true.
yes, in addition to what
Kasuluba, hold that thought. I want you to hold that thought. Let's take a commercial break here, and we shall be coming back.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Broad Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen, and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month, and it will stay on the recorded shows.
Welcome back to the show. Our subject today is democracy at work. We've looked at PF party presidential nominations, the process, the candidates. On the table right now, we're looking at the Kabushi by-elections, registered voters, those that turned out, those that voted, and all the tricks and the court drama that went on. Kasuluba, you were about to make a point before we went on a commercial break.
I want to add on to what Mr. Malenga just made mention before the break. When we talk about the judiciary being independent, what does it mean? I feel these are some of the things that really need to be revisited. Okay? The Chief Justice of the judiciary, which is supposed to be an independent wing, is being appointed by the sitting president. So, how possible is it? How can you, in a way, that's a finger that's feeding you at that point, you know, because they're like, hey, come through and do that, you know. So we're not saying there are no individuals that can still be independent and stand on their own. They can, but then also they need to be seen. Law usually states to say you should not just be independent, but you should be seen to be. So being
independent.
Yes, being seen to be, it means that even things like appointment and all, like you had made mention, maybe we need to move to a point where they're elected on merit, they move, there's that separation and independence so that they're running their own show.
The other way is obviously, like for instance, Supreme Court justices are still appointed by the president. So basically, the president nominates and floats a name, but it still have to be ratified by Congress and the House. So there could be a system where they are taken through parliaments to be ratified. And I know this happens also in South Africa, where it's like you're sitting for an interview. They dig into every ruling that you have made, everything that's controversial up to where you are. They dig into your character, because the rulings that you make literally affect lives. And when you talk about politics, when you talk about politics, like in this situation, people could say, you know what, we're going to go and riot, and now somebody gets shot and things like that. So it's very, very important. But at the same time, we are not implying that there was any foul play necessarily. You don't have any facts. We don't know that. But like he said, the appearance of fairness, and just generally speaking, when you don't rule against the person that gave you the job.
Yeah, that's true. It's a human reality. Yeah. And you can't run away from it. So as we wind up this Kabushi Kwacha by-elections, we're just hitting the main points. We don't want to go into things that we are making observations. What did this speak, or what did this reveal about our democratic process, our electoral process? What did this say about the two things?
I think I would like to go first. I think before I directly tackle your question, we've talked so much, I think, in a way on the side of the aggrieved party, the PF and all. But then also, for me, the lesson that came out of this is that politicians need to really be very careful and watch the cards that they play. Because whether we like it or not, Mr. Lusambo and Mr. Malanji brought a number of things upon themselves.
Okay.
Mr. Malanji knew that he needed to be qualified. It's grade 12, right?
Grade 12,
have a grade 12 certificate. So to say, okay, I need to have this. So why should you go or rather hold certain positions when you do not have that?
But Kasuluba, to your point, that's a very important point. In my thinking and in my position, and I'm saying to myself, but how did the ECZ allow that to happen? How did they even allow him to file for nomination? How did it happen?
And the first time around, how did all that happen? You see, but again, this is where the independence of certain organs comes in. Because the only explanation is that at the first time around, they had to accept because this is what the boss wants.
Yeah.
We know that in Zambia, even if you really the president like you won't even be able to stand at what level, if you have anything. But here we see in other democracies like the US, we see a situation where in the same political party, I can disagree with the president and still stand under the same umbrella at this local level.
Yes.
But we don't see it so much in Zambia. So the independence thing is really critical, that we keep improving upon what has been built. So we are not saying that the system that we have is totally trash. No, but we're saying we should be able to grow and look at the number of questions that keep coming up each election.
Yes.
So if they keep reoccurring, how do we stem some of these things? And I think that the way we stem them is to keep appearing more and more independent than you actually are. The appearance is really everything at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is.
Goes a long way.
Let's look at some comments here. Dr. Naomi is saying good afternoon to all of us. And Eugene is basically making the same point you made, Kasuluba. He says, no one was cleared. They only answered the question as to whether nullification is disqualification. What are you trying to cure if you allow the very people that cheated in the election to recontest the by-election? The court made the bad judgment from the beginning and still went on to complicate this issue. This should have been made clear from the beginning. I like the point where he says, what are you trying to cure if you allow the very people that cheated in the election to recontest? That's a very important observation. Okay, let's switch gears here. The UK has a new prime minister of Indian origin. Now, this is the way I wanted us to look at the speech, but our colleague from the UK, I wanted to get on the ground feedback, but none of us here live in the UK, so we can't give that analysis on the what do you call it, on the feedback of what's pertaining on the ground. But I want us to play a certain video clip here, and I want everybody to pay attention to this, okay? I want you to listen to this.
It's not because of his policies or because of his personality. No, there are some people who have a problem with something else, as this caller to a British radio show so eloquently explained.
Is the real problem here, Jerry, that Rishi Sunak is a brown man and you don't trust him at the top of this country?
Well, could you imagine him going to the Scottish Nationalists and being the Prime Minister of the Scottish Nationalists? Could you imagine me becoming the Prime Minister of Pakistan or Saudi Arabia? No, these things matter. I'm sorry you don't like it, but this is predominantly, we're talking about England, right? 85% of the English people, yes, are white English people, and they want to see a Prime Minister that reflects them.
Yeah.
Okay, 85% of English people are white or Caucasian, and they want to see a prime minister that reflects them. Racist or...
you know, these laws, it's just that this time it's caught up with them. Because when you look at England, there's a lot of people who came from all over Europe. So when you are making the law for England, you don't say you have to be British, everything. You try to define who is British from the territory of England. You realize that this one came from France, that one is from Italy, the uncle is from, even though they're European. So you leave that loophole just as if you're born here. And so here's an Indian who's born here. What are you going to say now? They just assumed everyone who's born here is going to be white. And unfortunately, it catches up with you.
I like that. I like your reasoning, Alan.
It's what
catches up with you, right?
Yes. With Obama, the assumption was, as long as you're born here, one parent can be, because America is a nation of people who come from everywhere. Yes. So they couldn't go too far down with restrictions. So here pops up an Obama with an African father. You know what I'm saying? So no matter how they disliked it, he ruled. He became president. So even with England, and it's amazing. They say, does do the British people, do they remember when they sent someone to rule Zambia and Angola and Botswana? And do they remember when they had someone ruling over India? So why are they complaining now they got an Indian ruling over them?
I know, right?
When the table was turned.
Yeah, I know. I like your thoughts and the way you're looking at it. Yeah. That's why Trump tried to change that law in this country, Kasumba.
Yeah.
Okay.
He tried to change that law. Okay, go ahead with your comment on that video clip.
I actually wanted to come in on Mr. Mulinga's point there, where he talked about colonialism and things like that, because I heard that somewhere to say when the English were colonizing the blacks, did they expect to come to Africa and find fellow white people? So so I really laughed when I saw that. And for me, really, it's about finding fault or issues in almost everything. Okay? You have your own. I don't know their description of who's purely English whatsoever, but those that are purely English in their own definition are still having issues, and they're still resigning, or there's still chaos, there's still whatsoever. So what is expected, what they're looking for?
It's unfortunate. Zambia had that. We said President Kaunda was from Malawi. Chiluba was from Congo. all those things. All these,
Yeah.
so eventually, some of these things catch up. But at the same time, I do understand. If even if we just go at tribal level in our country, to expect somebody who is Luvale to come and be the senior chief in Chinsali would be like, come on, Chinsali, you know, and so to an extent, people are going to have those feelings, you know, but that's why it's not an emotional issue, it's a legal issue.
It's a legal issue.
The law doesn't care what your emotions are. But on paper, yeah, you want a British person to be the British, but that guy he is British. He's just
yes, he is. Now here there's something that he mentioned in there which I like very much. He says, "Come on, you cannot expect me, a white person, to go and be a president or prime minister in India or Saudi Arabia." He mentions those countries there. Yeah. The point to our conversation here is, we don't know what the law says in those countries, right? About these issues. You have to look at the individual law in the country and what it says about who can ascend to power. Well, you can't talk about Saudi Arabia because it's a monarchy as far as I know. All right. But maybe India and those are Pakistan. He mentioned Pakistan. The question is, he said, I know you don't like it, but it is what it is. Would you say is racist?
I think you go into now defining what is racist. Does he have a
what
prejudice?
Is racism?
Yes. Do we all have prejudices? Yes. There are things that we say, but white people are crazy in this way, or that tribe is crazy in this way. It's not always tribalist, you know, but I think the racism comes in how I actually treat you, how I create laws that disadvantage you, how I do things and what I say to you. That's when now we're becoming. But if I have a preference of saying, I would rather somebody who is from here, looks like me, talks like me, is the one that's the ruler, there's a thin line. Let me put it that way. There's a very thin line.
Yeah, there is. There is a very thin line.
The point I wanted to bring up is that, anyway, almost a lot of countries are not different from the UK and this issue. Remember when Mr. Guy Scott was vice president?
Yes.
Yes.
Mugabe was the first person to raise that point.
Yes.
You remember that well, and Mugabe was the first person who protested on our behalf.
Yeah.
So, you know, but then you find that you know that being a citizen or a tribe, a member of a particular tribe, doesn't necessarily mean that your parents or whatsoever were that tribe. But if you've grown up amongst that tribe, you are part of it. Why I'm saying that is that I think some of these people that were making some of these laws were looking at it from that angle, because I have met white people who are more Zambian than myself here in Zambia. Yeah. They understand they understand Zambian history better, the geography, everything about. They are the ones that are educating you about Zambia, and yet you are saying he's white, is not Zambian. But me, I know little about Zambia. They've been in Zambia maybe for the past 100 years, you know, or something like that. Their parents, whatsoever, they are complete Zambians.
But that argument also will get you in trouble in South Africa, because then they're saying, so you are implying that these white people should continue ruling us.
The Dutch settlers.
In Zambia, you have the white chief in Northwestern. So, you know, these matters are, again, it's how they treat him and what you say about the person that's going to determine. It's not a legal argument that they have, it's an emotional and a prejudicial one. So they can't really stop.
It doesn't hold water.
Yeah, it doesn't really hold water, you know.
All right. So as we wind up, we conclude here, is democracy working in Zambia?
Yes, it is. It is working. And if we want to take an honest overall look at democracy, as far as concerned, Zambia is a shining star. Because as much as we bicker amongst ourselves, we have not stormed the parliament January 6th in Zambia yet, no matter how we disagree. So we have been able to successfully, through the elections, change leaders. What we are aiming for, what we are yearning for, is a more perfect nation. You know, that's what we should be striving for. So a better democracy. So in the new ruling government, that's why I kept going to when we talk about the ECZ, is the complaints that have been there for the past 10, 20 years. Yes. Can we do something about them instead of just saying, that's what happens, we'll conduct the elections, and keep going? We should be striving to keep getting better and better. That's why we want inspirational leaders, a strong opposition that will make sure that they keep the ruling party on their toes and doing the right thing, not just on paper and upon news, but actually in parliament. We need a strong opposition so that we can curtail laws that do not propel the nation forward.
That's right. That's good stuff, Alan. Thank you so much. Kasulwa, your final word before we end here?
Yeah, I also feel and think that democracy is working, because one of the measures of democracy is looking at what's prevailing in one nation in comparison to another. So especially for Zambia, the comparison has to do with the other African countries. And there's a sense of sanity. Freedom of speech is better. Yes, there's more that we can do, but things are better than they used to be. Yeah, we still have lots of other issues to work on, like what Alan and yourself brought up that need to be corrected. It's not things that can be done just in 2 years or whatsoever. It takes time, but we are on the right trajectory, and democracy is working.
Excellent, excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Alan. It's good to have you back here. Don't be a stranger, please. We need you more. Yes, as usual, and great discussion. Democracy at work. Once again, before we end, welcome the Zambian community to the Dallas area for the big Independence Party. That's the address I've put up there. The registration is not closed. You can still show up at the door. However, it will cost you $100 if you do it today. You're welcome. Looking forward to seeing everybody. I'm going there, Alan. I'll be there to go and have some fun and meet some people and enjoy ourselves. And we're looking
Say
forward
hi to everyone.
Yes, I will. Yeah. By the way, I'm gonna meet the Insaka ladies in person for the first time.
So that's great.
They are around. Yeah. Looking forward to that. So that's our show for today. Next week, we did promise you that we might have an aide from one of the presidential aides. We won't mention his name because it's not yet confirmed. So we're still working on that. We're still waiting. Either he will come or we shall work on the youngest PF presidential candidate. We'll bring him here to hear his vision and what needs to be done. Thank you, and everybody have a great weekend. We shall see you next weekend.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Broad Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And it will stay on the recorded shows.
Zambia Blog Talk Radio.